Nah, I feel confident because I'm the best player in the world. That's simple.
Okay, we're back with this knucklehead again. Hey, my name is Kyle and welcome to the channel. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about Mr. LeBron James opening his mouth in the Brittney Griner situation as only LeBron James can. And if you've been around this channel for a while, you know we don't think much of LeBron James for many reasons, one of which he's not the most intelligent person in the room, in fact, anywhere for that matter, because when he talks, he just doesn't make any sense. And so I'm going to share with you what he said about Brittney Griner. I'm going to cover that whole thing. I'm going to tell you the 3 reasons why this whole situation is just plain dumb. And see, for the first reason is that you have a situation where Brittney Griner, a WNBA player, goes over to Russia and commits a crime of having some hashish material, which is a serious crime in Russia. They don't roll like they do here in America. And she did it at a time when the relationships between the United States and Russia are not at their best. This happened actually in February the 17th to be exact, and she's been locked up ever since. And so the situation, of course, is since this person is black and because they always want to make things racial, well, it's a situation now where they feel that because she's black, she's not being treated well. And then there's the argument that if LeBron James had been in the situation, then he would be free by now. But I will get to those 2 things in great detail. So let's kick it off with this Daily Wire article by Greg Wilson titled, "LeBron James Says Brittney Griner Shouldn't Even Want to Come Back to America." Let's see what he actually said, and let's give this guy a fair shake, because I want to make sure that I'm honest when I'm reporting on this guy, even though it's so easy to dump on him because of what he says is ridiculous. However, I'm going to go over it, give him the benefit of the doubt, and break down what he said, and we will judge from there. Detained WNBA superstar Brittney Griner ought to rethink whether she even wants to come home to America, said fellow basketball icon LeBron James, who, by the way, is not better than Michael Jordan, who claims the U.S. hasn't done enough to free her from Russia captivity. Okay, so just that last sentence there. The U.S. hasn't done enough to free her from Russian captivity. Why should the United States do anything to free Brittney Griner? Number 1, she committed a crime. In fact, she even pleaded guilty to said crime. All right, so let's just talk about that. She pled guilty. So going back to my point, or why is the U.S. responsible for freeing her? It's not like she was going on vacation with her family and she was having a picnic in the park, and then the Russian gulag came and grabbed her and put her into a camp, and now she's in prison. No, she committed a crime, and Russian law states she must do said crime and go to trial and all of that. Now, of course, we know Russia is basically playing games. They want to make it seem like they're more democratic than most, but it doesn't matter. When you go to another country, you do the crime, you have to do the time. So it says here that James made the shocking comment on The Shop Uninterrupted, an HBO show in which James and others, including Jon Stewart, he's a character, and Snoop Dogg, another idiot, shoot the breeze about news, sports, and culture in a barbershop. So of course we're getting our news from these people, which, by the way, Snoop Dogg is an incredible hypocrite. He was hanging out with Trump years ago and was praising him left and right, but I am digressing. When the conversation turned to Griner, James threw up a brick, as he normally does, especially in the clutch. If you are a LeBron James follower, you know what I mean by that. He chokes. Quote, How can she feel like America has her back? Unquote, James said. I wouldn't be feeling like, do I even want to come back to America? Okay. All right, man. So let's actually break what he said down here. He says here, now how can she feel like America has her back? Again, this goes back to the point. Why should America have her back? Why? When you commit a crime, it's just a matter at this point going through the process of paying for your crime. When you go overseas, man, you don't have special privileges unless you're a diplomat and you have something called diplomatic immunity. And I'm pretty sure basketball players, especially in the WNBA, do not have that. And so here's the thing here. The second part is, I wouldn't be feeling like, do I even want to go back to America? All right. So this statement here could imply that he's saying that she should just stay in Russia. I mean, now I know it could be interpreted that she could go to another country that likes her better in his mind, but on the surface, in the context, it's as if he's saying she can just stay in Russia. But Russia is mistreating her. And I'm sure most people are saying this. I mean, her friend who was trying to get her out, her female friend was trying to get her out, was complaining about the US government not doing enough. And everyone is saying that Russia is mistreating her and violating her human rights and civic rights. Well, if that's the case, why would she want to stay in Russia? Let's assume that he means, well, she goes somewhere else in another country. Okay, well, that could possibly be true, but I would argue that she's gotten all of her benefits, everything that she has in this country, all of her prestige, her career, everything, her college, from America. So you would think that for all this time, America has done something right in her life, right? But what else did LeBron James say that's pretty stupid? Well, back in 2018, he said this. In the NFL, they got a bunch of old white men owning teams, and they got the slave mentality, James said. He's trying to sound like Malcolm X, even though the book that you saw him reading, the autobiography of Malcolm X, it was the first page. And several books that you see him reading, it's on the first page. It's like it's just propaganda. But again, I'm digressing. And it's like, this is my team. You don't do what the F I tell y'all to do, or we get rid of y'all. Okay, so he's basically talking about the NFL, about multi-millionaires. I think the minimum salary, I'm not sure what it is like $500,000 for just getting on the team. Of course, I know it gets prorated based on the practice squad and however you make the roster and your second year contract, because there's no guaranteed money in NFL. I get all that. But, they are not, and I don't want to disrespect anybody's career, but they're not some other career like the average person on the street. I'll put it that way. They're making way more money than the average person on the street. And those so-called, or those old white men that he calls them, they own the team and they have employee rules that you must abide by if you want to be on an NFL team. You must play by their rules because it's their team, and that's how it works. That's with everything in society. If I work for a company, let's say Burger King, and I don't wear the Burger King uniform, guess what? I'm not going to work at Burger King anymore. No matter what I feel it is, I'm not going to be able to work there, because it is a company rule, and you could be in violation of those company rules, and you enter into an agreement when you are employed by said company imposing those company rules. And so therefore you are accountable to upholding those company rules. LeBron, sometimes you have to speak in a way that's really childish, because I don't think LeBron James has a adult thought in his head. I really don't. And so he also talked about Drew Brees. He tweeted this. Wow, man. It's still surprising at this point. Sure isn't. You literally still don't understand why Cap, talking about Colin Kaepernick, was kneeling on one knee. Has absolute nothing to do with disrespect of America. But it does when you have a Fidel Castro t-shirt who basically didn't like America. It's Colin Kaepernick. That's a whole other issue. But I will continue here. And our soldiers, men and women who keep our land free. Okay. I understand that, but that's exactly what he was doing. He was using it to disrespect a tried and true tradition in sports that is meant to unite the crowd, the audience, to put them into a good mood so that they could partake in the concessions and have camaraderie and make it a good time for everybody. And that's what the national anthem was traditionally was for, to give pride in something, a unifying spirit. And because sports is what it is, it's a combat type situation where you must have a winner and a loser, and it's competitive. It ties right into the American spirit, and that's why the American flag and national anthem is so important, in addition to honoring our fallen soldiers and heroes. Okay, so he doesn't get that either. He also defended China, despite its abysmal human rights record, when Houston Rockets executive Daryl Morey spoke out in support of Hong Kong freedom activists. He said this: "We all talk about this freedom of speech. Yes, we all have freedom of speech. At times, there are ramifications." Wow, he said ramifications. That's pretty good, LeBron. For the negative that can happen when you're not thinking about others and you're only thinking about yourself, he added. I don't want to get into a feud with Daryl Morey, but I believe he wasn't educated on the situation at hand. Educated. Okay, LeBron. That is like the pot calling the kettle black. If I've ever heard that term, that is exactly it. Let's break this little thing down here. He says, we all talk about freedom of speech. Yes, we all do have freedom of speech, but at times there are ramifications for the negative. Like the times that you've said dumb things for your freedom of speech privileges, LeBron, like going back several years where he talked about police officers and talking about they wake up in the middle of the night going out and essentially hunting down black people. I'm paraphrasing, but that's a sentiment. The whole deal with the person with the knife who tried to injure that girl, and the policeman shot her. He went off on that and then doxed the police officer. And the police officers in Compton, in which many people felt that he was inciting violence in that situation from his rhetoric on social media. So he's done a lot of irresponsible things. So yes, there are ramifications for that, LeBron. And this whole thing is particularly ridiculous considering it's coming from a hypocrite like LeBron, who basically shilled for China, in particular, in one case, with his movie Space Jam 2, which was utter garbage. I did a review on that. You can check it out. I don't know why you would want to, but I totally said it was horrible, and it really is. So he was shilling for China. You can read the article right here. And he's also the most hated player in the NBA, which isn't shocking because of his actual rhetoric. But let's go back to where President Trump helped to release the 3 UCLA players who committed a crime in communist China, and eventually said, I wish I had just left them in jail because they weren't appreciative. And so the narrative came out that Trump actually helped to free these 3 college kids. I'm going to pull up this article from Breitbart, and then I'm going to pull up the article from Esquire trying to debunk it. So here it says here, do you think the 3 UCLA players will say thank you, President Trump? This is what Trump tweeted on Twitter when he had his account. They were headed for 10 years in jail. And ironically, Brittney Griner is looking at about 10 years in jail. So these crimes are about the same. Now, they're petty in our country, well, maybe not so much the stealing, but it's definitely not 10 years in jail, especially for a nonviolent crime. And so there's some parallel there, except there's 3 players versus 1. And that was that. And if you come down here to the actual statement, this is from General John Kelly, who was the White House chief of staff at the time. He said, quote, "Our president said to Z," that's the president of China, "Do you know anything about these knuckleheads that got caught allegedly stealing?" Unquote. Mr. Kelly said, "The president was saying it's not too serious. We love to see this taken care of in an expeditious way," unquote. And that's the statement. So Trump spoke to President Z, according to General Kelly, and unless he's lying, that's the whole deal. You would have to say he's lying for this story not to be correct. He's talking to them and saying, look, this needs to be taken care of. Now, let's look at the article from Esquire. So it says here, remember how Trump helped free those UCLA players arrested in China? Well, that story may not have been exactly true. Now, I'm going to read this quote for you, and I want you to read between the lines and see how deceptive this article really is. Remember, it's coming out roughly 6 months after the actual incident, and now they're using some kind of revisionist history to infer that the whole thing was baloney. Here it is. Let's hear. Now, a new report from ESPN, of course, the bastion of conservative media, has revealed that LeVar Ball might not have been wrong to withhold his thanks from the president, I mentioned before. According to a source, of course undisclosed, to the UCLA basketball team, here's the quote. Situation was already resolved by the time we heard about Trump's involvement, unquote. Is there a clear timeline here? Trump could have called them that day, and the time that they actually heard about it, when they called him, could have been several days later. It only takes a couple hours for President Z to get the ball rolling, to get those passports, situated, or just maybe 10 minutes, depending on how close he is to the situation. So if he spoke to them, which obviously he did, according to Kelly, then anything after that is immaterial. When they heard about it, it's immaterial and irrelevant. The fact that Trump intervened, you have to give credit that the fact that the President of the United States said this needs to be handled expeditiously. What happens? Right after that, expeditiously, they actually begin to be released. And they heard about that after the fact. We don't know how far after the fact, but after the fact is safe to say. Now, to recap, if LeBron James had gone over there and this happened, which he probably wouldn't have because he probably wouldn't have committed a crime, but had he committed the crime, him being freed would have just said one of two things: that WNBA isn't that important, Brittney Griner isn't that important in a league that everyone claims to be so loved, or the fact that LeBron James is more popular than the WNBA and that he would have been freed. It had nothing to do with that. It has to do with the level of celebrity at that point. And number two, Russia mistreating her. Why would she want to stay there? That's ridiculous. And why would she want to go anywhere else? Because for the simple fact that this country has given her everything that she has to this point. And so that makes no sense either, Mr. LeBron. And lastly, the whole thing is just dumb because LeBron is a hypocrite. He goes off on tangents on things that he knows nothing about, and then dares to claim that the people that are coming against him are uneducated. It's just a mess. And LeBron James is always fun to talk about on this channel. And if you like that kind of thing and more videos like that, we have a ton of LeBron James videos. So all you have to do is click on the links that we have for you right